Japan has long presented itself as a homogeneous nation with a single shared culture, but its cities tell a far more complex story. By 2025, the foreign resident population in Japan had reached nearly 4 million people, roughly 3 to 4% of the country's population, with far greater diversity among younger generations. Among these residents are Black people from many backgrounds: African Americans, Africans, Afro-Europeans, and Black Japanese citizens who were born or raised in the country. But what is life actually like for them in a society that still largely sees itself as ethnically uniform? In public, their dark skin and distinctive features often make them immediately visible in everyday life. On trains, in workplaces, in classrooms, and on city streets, that visibility can bring constant attention. Sometimes it shows up as curiosity, sometimes as admiration, and sometimes it becomes something much harder to ignore. So what does it really mean to live as a Black person in modern Japan? In this video, we're going beyond the cherry blossoms, beyond the neon lights of Tokyo, and beyond the polished image of Japan that most people see from the outside. Through personal stories, research, and first-hand accounts, we'll explore what life can look like for Black residents across the country, from the moments of curiosity and cultural exchange to the challenges of standing out in a society that still sees itself as largely homogeneous. Because behind Japan's reputation for order, safety, and politeness lies a much more complicated experience for those who live there but do not always look like everyone else. Let's get into it. For many Black residents and visitors in Japan, the experience of standing out begins the moment they step into everyday life. The moment a visibly Black person steps off a train in Tokyo or Osaka, even routine errands can feel tense. In a 2026 report by Travel Noir titled "What It's Like Being Black in Japan," writer Faith Katunga documented how many Black residents described their first experiences as being constantly watched. Jasmine Mitchell, an Oberlin Shanzi Fellow who moved to Tokyo in 2021, said that simply walking outside her apartment made her feel like a spectacle. She described the stares on trains, children pointing and whispering "kuroi," meaning Black, and the quiet attention that turned everyday commutes into a performance. In Japan's crowded cities, where social etiquette often discourages direct confrontation, that attention rarely comes as open hostility. Instead, it lingers in prolonged looks and silent observation. Many Black residents interviewed for the report say the hardest adjustment at first is simply being visible in a society where most people blend into the crowd. On packed rush-hour trains, some describe empty seats appearing beside them as other passengers quietly avoid sitting next to a foreigner. Black travelers sometimes refer to these as gaijin seats, an informal term for the empty space that forms around outsiders. In restaurants or shops, customers report similar moments of hesitation. Staff glance over, pause, or avoid eye contact, unsure how to approach someone who does not resemble their usual clientele. No part of daily life feels neutral when your appearance alone signals that you are different. In these moments, Japan's reputation for politeness often blends with curiosity. Black residents frequently report hearing unsolicited comments or questions. In a separate essay for Business Insider, Renee Morant, a Black American student living in Japan, described encounters where strangers assumed that any African-descended person must share the same interest in music, fashion, or pop culture. She wrote that some men approached her with the assumption that Black women were sexually free, asking if she liked artists such as Megan Thee Stallion or demanding that she dance. Morant also recalled strangers touching her hair or body without permission. Even compliments about how exotic she looked often felt more patronizing than friendly. After years living in Japan, many Black women say the constant novelty can become exhausting. It makes them visible, but only partially understood. Men report similar experiences. In interviews cited by Travel Noir, Black expatriates described being treated less like individuals and more like cultural curiosities. Ayana Wise, a content creator from New York who moved to Osaka, recalled one of those experiences while reflecting on her early friendships in Japan. She said some Japanese acquaintances enjoyed her dreadlocks and her presence at reggae clubs, but the relationship never went deeper. At one point, she realized they treated her as what she later described as their token Black friend that has dreads. The label captured a larger feeling shared by many Black residents. being welcomed for the image they represent while the person behind that image remains unseen. By contrast, some Black people say they feel physically safe walking the streets in Japan compared with experiences they might expect in other countries. Violent crime rates are low, and open racial violence is rarely reported, but many Black residents say that safety does not eliminate the quieter forms of discrimination they face. In interviews conducted by Sogo Hiraiwa, several young Black people raised in Japan described how their understanding of racism developed over time. Moha, a 21-year-old university student, model, and YouTuber who has lived in Japan since the age of 4, said he has repeatedly been told to go back to your country, been rejected from part-time jobs because he is Black, and experienced people refusing to sit beside him on crowded buses or trains. Landlords have also refused to rent to him because they see him as a foreigner. Moha explained that his understanding of racism deepened when he visited family in Sudan during high school and spoke with a cousin who grew up in the United States. During their conversation about racism, the cousin told him bluntly, "You just don't get it." That moment, he said, was the first time he truly learned about the Black Lives Matter movement. Later, when Moha uploaded a video discussing racism in Japan, the response revealed how divided public opinion could be. While many viewers were supportive, others filled the comment section with racial slurs and messages telling him to leave the country. Experiences like these led him to conclude that discrimination in Japan often appears in subtle or unconscious ways that many people refuse to acknowledge. Now, the next part of this video is about how these private encounters become public policy, or the lack of it. You see, Japan's laws offer almost no protection from racial bias. There is no national law specifically banning discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, or nationality. Constitutional guarantees of equal treatment collide with a gaping hole. Outside a few local ordinances and a 2016 law against hate speech, race rarely enters into Japanese jurisprudence. Officials and voters alike often prefer to say Japanese society has no racism rather than acknowledge it. This official denial means that when a Black resident is refused housing, denied a job, or targeted on the street, there may be no remedy or fine. Many concrete examples illustrate this gap. A survey conducted by the recruitment service YOLO Japan, which questioned 629 foreign residents living in Japan, found that housing discrimination remains widespread. Among the 487 respondents who had searched for rental housing, 200 people, or about 41%, said they had been refused an apartment simply because they were foreigners. In dozens of those cases, the applicants were fluent in Japanese. Nearly 70% could speak at least conversationally, yet landlords still claimed they would not rent to anyone non-Japanese. In practice, realtors and landlords often prefer Japanese tenants and quietly steer Black applicants away. Until recently, Japanese-only signs were common in bars and shops. They have mostly disappeared after legal and diplomatic pressure, but unofficial discrimination persists in myriad small ways. Racial bias also extends into the workplace. Without a clear anti-discrimination law, companies have little incentive to recruit diversely. Many Black expatriates arrive on English-teaching visas expecting to enter classrooms. There, they often confront a double standard. On the one hand, they are needed as native speakers, but on the other hand, they're subtly deemed less desirable than a white teacher. For many Black residents, the closest thing Japan has to official acknowledgement of the issue has been media incident after incident. One high-profile example was tennis star Naomi Osaka, of Japanese and Haitian heritage. In 2019, her sponsor, Nissan, ran an online anime commercial depicting her with unnaturally pale skin. Critics immediately dubbed it whitewashing and insensitive to her biracial identity. Osaka herself pressed the company to apologize, noting that she's tan, pretty obvious, and should have been consulted. Even the Tokyo Olympic torch relay sparked backlash when her Japaneseness was questioned on social media merely for being Black and speaking bluntly. These controversies reveal a tension in Japanese media. Famous mixed-race figures like Osaka or NBA player Rui Hachimura often enjoy national hero status, yet they too face a stream of hate on the internet. Hachimura, whose father is from West Africa, has complained that his own family members, including a younger brother, were openly bullied and told to go home, a haunting echo of old wartime racism. He has said that he endures racial insults almost daily despite his fame. In more everyday pop culture, black characters or themes have often been handled thoughtlessly. For decades, Japanese manga and anime rarely featured realistic black characters, and when they did, they were frequently drawn with exaggerated dark features or stereotypes. Children's shows and comedy sometimes even use blackface without anyone batting an eye. In 2020, an NPR report noted a 2009 TV special in which a Japanese comedian did a Louis Armstrong song in blackface to applause. These incidents only began to get pushback as global awareness grew. Fans on social media now point out how older cartoons like Dragon Ball or Pokemon portrayed Africans and African Americans with misshapen lips and cartoonish traits. In response, a few modern creators have tried to change this, but generally, Japanese television still offers precious few positive or complex black images. The divide into us and them even permeates social life. Within Tokyo's expatriate circles, many black residents eventually carve out their own support networks. Churches, cultural events, and online groups connect them. For example, in Osaka and Tokyo, black women have started gatherings called things like Black Creatives or Black Soul Food, nights where they can speak freely without performing to the majority culture. These meetups are vital refuges. Still, black people in Japan remain on guard in their personal lives. In matters of the heart, black residents encounter both stereotyping and genuine human connection. Some Japanese partners are fascinated by foreign customs and treat their black partner as a gateway to the world, but others have frankly admitted personal limits. Responses collected by Jets of African descent in a community survey about dating experiences in Japan suggest that racial perceptions often shape romantic dynamics. Several respondents said that white Western men are frequently described as Ikemen, meaning handsome, while black men are more often labeled kakoi, meaning cool, or edgy. Although both words can sound flattering, participants said the distinction sometimes carries an unspoken implication that black men are seen as exciting or fun, but less often as long-term romantic partners. Many women in the survey also described encounters with so-called gaijin hunters, people who specifically pursue relationships with foreigners. Respondents said this attention often felt less like genuine interest and more like fascination with foreignness itself. Some reported being invited out because of assumptions about black culture or their bodies rather than their personalities. One example comes from non-binary artist at Maricela Cher, who shared that a Japanese ex-boyfriend once admitted he initially dated her because she resembled the American singer Tina Fey, an example of how admiration could slip into objectification. At the same time, the experiences described in the survey were not universally negative. Some black residents have built long-term, loving relationships with Japanese partners. Yet respondents noted that interracial couples can still face skepticism from friends or family members who question whether the relationship will last. These mixed experiences illustrate how dating in Japan can involve both genuine connection and persistent racial stereotypes. But perhaps the sharpest illustration of systemic bias is how law enforcement interacts with black residents. A 2022 nationwide survey by the Tokyo Bar Association found that over 60% of foreign residents had been stopped by police in the past 5 years. Astonishingly, 85% of those said they were singled out just for looking foreign. Those figures from the Bar Association match what many black people report anecdotally. That year, 3 foreign-born men, including a black American married to a Japanese woman, sued prefectural police, arguing that frequent stop and searches without cause violate the Constitution. Their case points out that Japan's authorities have repeatedly targeted blacks and Southeast Asians in street patrols. One of the plaintiffs noted that these police standoffs end up broadcasting an ugly image of foreigners as criminal to the public, exactly opposite to Japan's image of welcome. It's a stark instance of how structural power can turn a person's skin color into a presumption of guilt, even though Japan's own laws require a valid reason to detain someone. Concerns about racial profiling have also reached international attention. In 2021, the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo issued a notice warning American citizens that police had reported cases of stopping foreigners for identification checks in public areas. Around the same time, the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination raised concerns about racial profiling practices in Japan. Japanese media also reported on incidents where officers gave questionable justifications for searches. For many black residents, And other visible minorities, these experiences reinforce a difficult reality. Even in a country known for safety and order, standing out can sometimes mean being treated as suspicious before anything else. It is in this context of scarcity and stereotype that Japanese society's fascination and ignorance become visible. Black culture, from hip-hop to Afrobeat, black fashion to basketball, has genuine fans in Japan. Tourists or teenagers with dyed hair will often approach a black person out of excitement, asking to take a photo or comment on an item of clothing. Sometimes this curiosity is welcome, but too often curiosity strays over the line. Numerous black people in Japan recount incidents of unwanted touching. For example, Jaime Smith, a black American organizer of a Tokyo Black Lives Matter rally, said she had strangers reach out and grab her hair on the street or shout abuse like "kusai" or "stinky" during a commute. Many have learned the hard way not to casually hug or even speak to random Japanese acquaintances for fear those gestures will be misinterpreted. Even when it's not hostile, the assumptions behind the attention can sting. Being asked countless times, "Do you have an English name?" or "Can I touch your hair?" questions very few Caucasian foreigners face, reinforces how perpetual an outsider one is. For many black individuals here, each day carries the weight of representing a history they did not choose. Bay McNeil, a black American author and commentator who has lived in Tokyo for years, has argued that racism in Japan often grows less from hatred than from unfamiliarity. As he explained in an interview, much of the prejudice he encounters stems from fear and ignorance about blackness rather than open hostility. Yet even when the intent is not malicious, the result can still feel isolating. In the end, being black in Japan today means living between two worlds of respect and rejection. On one hand, Japan can be a place of calm order and vibrant community. Many expatriates admit that aside from race, they enjoy life here. Black parents cherish the fact that their children grow up without fear of gun violence or overt street racism. Yet on the other hand, each of them carries scars, from slights on a commuter train or inexplicable rent rejection or a snicker in a team meeting that remind them daily of the color of their skin. But history shows that visibility can also become power. The same presence that once made black residents feel isolated is now building communities that never existed before. Black creators, teachers, artists, and entrepreneurs are slowly opening new spaces in Japanese society. Juneteenth events appear in Tokyo neighborhoods. Podcasts, blogs, and social media accounts now discuss race openly in a country that once avoided the conversation entirely. Change rarely arrives all at once. It grows through small acts such as these. For black people living in Japan, the goal has never been to erase difference. It is simply to live fully, to be seen as individuals rather than symbols, and to build lives without carrying the burden of constant explanation. The voices speaking up today are helping define what that future will look like tomorrow. And conversations like these matter more than ever. Many discussions about race, history, and lived experiences are still difficult to surface on major platforms. That is why we created a space outside the algorithm where these stories can continue to reach people. If you want to stay connected with our community and receive updates whenever we release new content, you can join our WhatsApp group through the link in the description. We also share additional material there that we cannot always post here. If you want to be part of more unfiltered discussions about history, identity, and the realities people live through around the world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next discussion. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.